So a lockout could honestly be coming for the WNBA, especially with the way the new negotiations are going to be for the CBA. Like, these players very clearly want quite a bit of money, and I don't know if the money they're going to be looking for is going to be available in the new CBA. And yeah, obviously, currently in a hotel, I will be, as usual, like getting different backgrounds. Don't worry, I'm going to be recording videos from every different spot in this hotel room, so you guys don't get the same background for too long. Like, it wouldn't be a Mick Talks Hoops channel without random backgrounds on every second video. But yeah, basically, the new CBA, they have been talking about it for years. Like, we all know, I've called it the Great Reset. Nobody, and I mean nobody, who's smart, has signed a contract through after next year. The whole league's basically gonna be a free agent in 2026. But like, you're hearing Breanna Stewart basically talking about how she wants the players, obviously a lot of like pensions and stuff to be put in, but also wanting players to make over $1 million. And I'm gonna be honest, that's not gonna happen. Like, you don't go from 250K to 1 million. Even though the reality of the situation is that there are some max contract players that are worth $1 million, there are some that aren't. Just like the NBA. Like, LeBron, Steph are worth 50 million. Rudy Gobert is not. But you kind of have to give Rudy Gobert a contract. Like, Caitlin Clark is worth $1 million. Angel Reese realistically is worth $1 million. Stewie, Sabrina, Aja, to be honest, is worth $1 million. Taurasi, peak Taurasi was, peak Super, peak Maya Moore. These players, like, they're the level of players that you're like, okay, yeah, they're worth it. Arike, you could argue Arike might be worth $1 million. Like, Satu maybe. But, for example, I'm trying to get players that are on max contracts. Obviously, Erica Wheeler, worth 100K, even with the new CBA. But that's really where we have to look at it, is that the problem is that by making the max contract $1 million, you're basically saying that you're trying to make the argument that there are more than, let's just say, every team has 2 max contract players. And there's going to be 15 teams in the W16 in a couple of years. And there are 32 players worth $1 million in the league. Nope. Not even everyone in that picture. Sabrina is. Kelsey Plum is not worth $1 million for a franchise. Brittany Griner is definitely not, especially in the year of 2024 for a franchise. Caitlin Clark's worth 50. Literally, if paying Caitlin Clark an NBA max is probably what she's worth to the Indiana franchise, let's be real. But that's the thing. I think there's going to be an issue with it because the players want more than they're going to get. And that's always going to be the case. Let's be real. In every negotiation, the workers are going to want more money from their employer, and their employers are going to want to pay workers less. Like, that's just the reality of the situation in every form of life. Like, I don't understand why people are complaining about the WNBA players wanting more money. And just even when people are like, oh, your league makes no money, stop complaining about money. It's like, man, how many companies don't make money? But yet workers still want to be paid more for what they do. Like, that's just life. Like, I don't understand how that went over so many people's heads. I do understand, because dunking on the NBA or in the WNBA was like a sport at one stage. To be fair, dunking on the WNBA was a more popular sport than the NBA itself up to a certain point. Especially like 2 or 3 years ago, it definitely was. But they're coming into these negotiations with a leverage of a TV deal that they got screwed in. And I think that's where the biggest issue is. Like, if I'm the WNBA players, I would try to negotiate a short-term CBA. Like, or with like a player's opt-out. So, like, you know the way the league can opt out of, or the league can renegotiate after 3 years, if they choose to, with the TV deal, where they can just plow on. I think there needs to be some sort of a deal like that with the WNBA PA. They've got to negotiate some sort of a deal where it's like, okay, this is our current structure. Like, they want $1 million, they're not going to get it. Like, what I think they should realistically push for is if they're able to negotiate it to $750 a max, that's still 3 times as much. Like $750K is enough that a lot of players won't choose to go to Europe. Which is one of the big things, is like players not having to go overseas. But at the same time, you're like, you've got to have that deal ready, being like, look, if we renegotiate our TV deal in 3 times or in 3 years, and instead of making $200 million a year, we're making $400 million a year, we have to be allowed to renegotiate our CBA. And now that, I think, is the most important thing about this, is that they have that renegotiation. But I think these talks are going to last for a long time, because I think the players almost want like unreasonable things from, whether it be the commissioner, whether it be anything. Like they want, like a lot of these players want the league to be a safe space, as well as make more money and get rid of all the new fans and do all the stuff. And it's like, that's where it becomes a tough argument. Because the reality is that, like obviously right is right and wrong is wrong, but there are going to be a lot of dickheads, for lack of a better word, that will buy merch and watch games. And the unfortunate truth is that you can't choose who your fans are. And no matter how much you want to try denounce certain fans, you can't choose the people that are watching, especially because a lot of the new fans, what people don't realize, are just basketball fans. And like, there's nothing you can do to get rid of basketball fans. Like, you know the way I say the players can turn off social media? I mean, I think a lot of times the basketball fans can turn off social media as well. And they'll just watch the sport. And unfortunately, some of them are maybe not the ideal audience for what the players want or expected, but it's the reality. And I think like it's going to be some tough conversations that I think the players are going to look for some, like, basically look for the league to put a stop to internet trolls, which they obviously can't do. I think that's going to be part of the negotiations, because obviously, like, I think the reality is the league needs to do better social media training with players. I really think they do. And like, teams need to take a leaf out of the Fever or the Lynx's book and like stay off the tweet, as Stephen A. Smith would say. But still, it's one of those situations where I have a weird feeling that what the players want and what the league wants are on opposite sides. I think the league and the owners are going to want to do whatever they can. And again, I could be wrong. My gut feeling is that the league and the owners want to make as much money as possible, and the players are going to want to make as much money as possible. And I think the reality is that I think the league and the owners are going to want to ask certain things from players that the players are going to want to not do for that money. So I think that's really where it's going to come down to, whether or not, because I think everyone just wants to make more money. At the end of the day, that's everyone's goal. The owners, everyone's goal is to make more money. I think the biggest issue is that I think there are going to be a lot of players high up in the PA and a lot of high up WNBA players that are going to want to make more money, but aren't going to want to do any of the things that will help them make more money. Like they're going to want the benefits from the growth of the game without either helping promote the game or, in fact, doing the opposite and trying to stagnate the growth of the game, because they don't like what happens when the game grows. Because that's the thing. It's like there are a million good things with the growth of sports. There are a few bad things with the growth of a sport. And the reality is the more sport grows, and a lot of people are talking about being like, oh, the reality is the more the sport grows, the more the players in the sports become celebrities. And the harsh reality is the stuff the WNBA players are facing this year is a product of celebrity culture more so than it is a product of anything. And they just want to blame FIFA fans. It's a product of celebrity culture. It is a big negative. And the reality is, with the growth of the game, people are like, oh, the growth of the game doesn't mean this. Like, no, it is a horrible reality of celebrity culture. And I have a weird feeling that the players being very unhappy with that could lead to a stop in the CBA. Do I think there's going to be a lockout? Nope. Nope, these players can't afford it. As much as they have, this is the first time they have leverage in negotiations. Like, they don't make enough money that they can just take a season out. I don't think that's going to happen. The only way I could see it happening is if the players somehow get funding and just say, screw it. Screw it. Whoever is running Unrivaled, whoever is running these leagues, they just say, you know what? Screw this. Like, the league salary was like, what, 12 million last year? We're just going to go and run our own league. That's the only way. That's the only way there's going to be a lockout, but that's highly unlikely to happen. There will be a WNBA season. It's not going to be a lockout, but I think coming towards it, there will probably be a threat of a lockout from the players, because at the end of the day, this is the first time they have leverage, so I think they're going to try to take as much as they can out of this situation.